Hey, what's going on, folks? It's Mike here, and welcome to another video in which I give some advice on just common questions that come up from students or other folks that I talk to who are just getting in the industry. And today I'm going to be talking about hackathons. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So, first and foremost, what is a hackathon? Well, a hackathon is usually an event where you build something in a predefined amount of time. So it's usually maybe 8 hours or one working day, or most frequently, hackathons usually take place on the weekends, in which you have effectively 72 hours to build something. Now, the hackathons that I've personally been a part of are usually related to game development or called game jams. You might have other hackathons that go by different names like jams or health jams. If you're building software for health applications, it really doesn't matter. But what I recommend is trying to find one of these in the actual domain that you're interested in for your career as a software engineer. So, hackathons themselves are just a great opportunity to dive in. What it really forces you to do is just, well, sit down and build something. Because oftentimes the hardest part is just getting started. So, if you sort of sign up and that's a motivational way to participate and say, okay, I'm going to dedicate, this one weekend every few months and build something new and exciting or learn a new programming tool and, build a piece of software, that's a great thing to do. In fact, that's how I got started at my first hackathons, in which I said, hey, I'm going to learn this particular software. For me, at the time, it was Unity 3D, and then it was Unreal Engine, and just to go ahead and, again, dive in and make sure that I'm making use of that time that otherwise I might just not be, putting good use to. Now, the reason I'm talking about hackathons today is I think they're great ways to sort of boost your portfolio in a number of ways. So oftentimes, if you're able to participate in these hackathons, whether they're online or in person, you can meet other folks and develop the software with them. So that's a great opportunity for you to, as I've noted here, collaborate with some other folks, maybe that you otherwise would not have met. And for myself, I've made a decent amount of friends actually doing this, and we've stayed in touch on social networking sites like LinkedIn and so on. So that's something, again, that's really great. But of course, you're often welcome to do these events solo if you're just not comfortable or, again, participating online. The point is to just get yourself started. And sometimes having some folks around you, though, can be helpful. Now, a lot of these folks that I've met personally ended up going to work at game companies or doing stuff in the entertainment space that I was interested in. So again, it just became a great network where we could support each other and, again, just make some new colleagues and friends. So my advice is to try to find some sort of hackathon in your domain, again, whether that's games or something else. And again, just try to join in. A lot of larger cities, if you're near a large city, you can go ahead and try to travel to and maybe participate, make it a fun trip, or again, just participate online. I've listed some here that are great for gamers, the Global Game Jam or Ludum Dare that are great jams to get started in that particular domain. But again, you might find some other ones in your city or nearby at a local university. Now, the one advice that I want to give here for hackathons, however, that I think a lot of folks maybe don't go into knowing is that, well, let me put it this way. For your first game jam, just go ahead and hop in, or your first hackathon or whatever. There's going to be a lot of interesting stuff. There'll be maybe food and people to meet and all that sort of stuff. And, you do some engineering. But maybe starting with the second or maybe the third one, it's really to try to be intentional about these game jams or hackathons that you're attending. Now, what I mean by this is going into it saying, hey, I'm going to learn this particular skill or try this thing. Again, for me, usually what I try to do at a game jam is maybe learn a new piece of technology. So that might be a different type of programming language that I'm using or a different game engine or whatever it might be, but I'm trying to be intentional about using that time to sort of quickly ramp up on something and otherwise spend time on something that I wouldn't otherwise. Now, of course, that's my sort of intentional how I approach these things. For you, it might be, again, to actually maybe build a game and publish it. And that kind of goes with this second step that I want folks to also think about. Oftentimes, hackathon projects do get sort of thrown away. But at the very least, a hackathon project should be something that you would be proud to maybe put on your GitHub portfolio or your website, if you have a portfolio page there, and again, show off something that you built. And just because the game jam or the hackathon is constrained to, say, a weekend, that doesn't mean you can't work on it later. And I think that's the one part that I'd advise a lot of folks who are trying to build a portfolio take into consideration. That is to actually take their project, and then after that, rapid 24-hour, 48, or 72, or however long this hackathon takes, actually go back, clean up your code, clean up your art if you're an artist, clean up your music or whatever, and at least polish it up a little bit. But then try to take it a step further. Maybe revisit, give yourself a deadline again to revisit that project, maybe a week later while it's still sort of fresh, and see if you can push it just a little bit further. Because the reality is, usually in these short amount of times, you're not going to have something that you'd be able to publish or sell in the App Store. Although that does happen in some cases. I've actually seen it. But again, I think what's neat is if you're building a portfolio, you want to show your depth in some sort of field. So for instance, if I'm just learning a new tool, it's nice if I revisit that over time. And then I can keep pushing a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further. Because again, to me, my advice with hackathons is they're great for just getting started and meeting people. Again, they sort of give you permission to start a project without having to think about it too much. As a lifelong runner, they always say the hardest part to going outside for a run is, well, first putting on your shoes. So that's sort of the same idea with what hackathons, I think, help solve. They help get your shoes on, so to speak, so that you can go ahead and start building something that you're interested in and practicing and learning new skills. So that's what I have for hackathons. Do them. They're great fun. Again, you don't always have to take them super serious, but for those of you who are building portfolios or new grads trying to get a job, they can be a great step in the right direction, and try to push it just a little bit further by continuing to build on that project. Maybe it'll be with your team, or maybe you'll just focus in on an area. Regardless, I hope this was useful. I hope you folks enjoyed this advice. Let me know if you built something cool and maybe post it in the comments and others can review it. Or otherwise, let me know your thoughts. What's the latest hackathon or game jam that you think folks should attend? All right, folks, as always, thank you for your time and attention. I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.